2 million people switched operating systems because Microsoft quietly pulled off one of the most aggressive user betrayals in the history of consumer software. Think about this for a second. You bought a laptop 5 years ago. It still runs perfectly. The battery is fine. The screen is sharp. It handles everything you throw at it. And one morning, the company whose software runs on it tells you that your machine is now officially dead to them. Understand how this happened and why it was completely avoidable. On October 14th, 2025, Microsoft officially ended support for Windows 10. No more security patches. No more bug fixes. No more safety net. On that single day, an estimated 240 million PCs became officially unsupported. To put that in perspective, that is roughly 1 in every 5 computers on the planet. Gone, left out in the cold. Not because those machines stopped working, not because the hardware failed, but because Microsoft drew a line in the sand and said, upgrade or get left behind. The upgrade path was Windows 11. But Windows 11 came with a catch, a very specific catch. TPM 2.0, a hardware chip that most machines older than 2019 simply do not have. So, unless you were willing to buy a new PC, willing to pay for hardware you should not have needed, or willing to run an unsupported workaround, Microsoft had essentially told you your functional, perfectly capable laptop or desktop was obsolete. Hundreds of millions of people were suddenly sitting on hardware that worked just fine, but had no safe software future under Microsoft. That is the setup. That is the moment everything changed. And into that exact vacuum, on that exact same day, a small team of developers from Dublin, Ireland, released something that changed the game entirely. Zorin OS 18 launched on October 14th, 2025. Same day, not a coincidence. The Zorin Group, which is essentially a tiny indie development team, had been watching Microsoft's trajectory for years. They saw the TPM wall coming. They saw the hardware requirements. They saw what was going to happen to those 240 million machines. And they built Zorin OS 18 specifically to be the landing pad for exactly those users. Now here's where the story gets interesting, because Zorin OS is not just another Linux distro. Anyone who has ever tried to switch from Windows to Linux knows the struggle. You sit down at the desktop and nothing makes sense. The file manager looks different. The App Store is confusing. Right-clicking does the wrong thing. The whole experience feels like you moved to a new country where everyone speaks a language you half understand. Zorin OS was built to eliminate every single one of those friction points. The interface was designed to look and behave almost identically to Windows. The taskbar is in the same place. The start menu works the same way. The right-click context menus feel familiar. Even the fonts and the general visual language were tuned to feel like something Windows users would recognize on day one. And unlike Windows 11, it runs beautifully on older hardware. No TPM 2.0 requirement. No mandatory specs that force you to upgrade. If your machine runs, Zorin runs. And within 48 hours of launch, 100,000 people had already downloaded it. 72% of them came from Windows. But here's where the conflict starts. Because Microsoft did not just make it hard to upgrade, they made Windows 11 actively unpleasant in ways that had nothing to do with hardware. If you've been on Windows 11 for any length of time, you already know what I'm talking about. Start with the ads. Actual display ads built directly into the start menu. Not in third-party apps, not in the browser, in the operating system itself. Then there is Copilot, Microsoft's AI assistant, which was shoved into the interface without asking anyone whether they wanted it. Then there are the forced updates that restart your machine at the worst possible moments. The telemetry you cannot fully turn off. The OneDrive prompts that will not stop until you sign in. The UI changes that happen without warning, moving settings menus you knew by heart to locations that require a 10-minute search to find again. This is not paranoia. This is documented behavior. Tech journalists, enterprise IT teams, and privacy researchers all flagged it. The Verge ran pieces on it. Ars Technica documented the telemetry depth. EFF wrote about the erosion of user control. And users were paying attention. Windows 11's satisfaction scores in enterprise surveys dropped noticeably through 2025. The message was clear even before the Windows 10 deadline hit. Microsoft was treating its users not as customers, but as a captive audience to be monetized. And people were getting tired of it. Here's the part nobody talks about. The real exodus from Windows was not a sudden event. It was not caused by one update or one announcement. It was a slow burn of accumulated frustration that the Windows 10 deadline finally lit into a full fire. Over 1 million people switched to Zorin OS in just the first few weeks after launch. The Zorin servers crashed twice in the first 72 hours because the infrastructure was never designed for that kind of traffic. The development team had to emergency scale their hosting in real time. Think about what that means. A two-person development shop from Ireland had to scramble to handle the kind of download traffic that most enterprise software teams plan months for. By the end of November 2025, the Zorin Group publicly confirmed that over 780,000 of their new users had migrated directly from Windows machines, not from Mac, not from other Linux distros, from Windows. By January 2026, Zorin OS 18 had crossed 2 million total downloads, with over 75% of those coming from Windows devices. Windows Central covered it, Linux Journal covered it, MSN picked it up. TechRadar ran a piece asking whether Microsoft should start worrying. The answer, if you look at the data, is obviously yes. Now let us talk about the twist, because the headline says Bill Gates is panicking, and I want to be honest with you about what that actually means. Bill Gates has not run Microsoft since 2000. He stepped down from the board entirely in 2020. So when you see YouTube thumbnails of Gates looking shocked, that is a content format, not a news report. The people actually watching this with concern are Satya Nadella and the executive team currently running Microsoft. And their response to the Linux migration has been nothing useful. Microsoft's official communication around the Windows 10 end of life was essentially buy a new PC or upgrade to Windows 11. They offered a stopgap program letting people pay for extended security updates for 1 more year. But at $30 per device for personal users and significantly more for businesses, it was widely seen as a ransom note rather than a solution. There was a brief period where tech press speculated Microsoft might lower the hardware bar for Windows 11, but that never materialized. The TPM 2.0 requirement stayed. The ad-laden interface stayed. Copilot stayed. Microsoft did not bend. And so the users did not come back. They went further into Linux, and Zorin was not the only one benefiting. Linux Mint saw record installs, Ubuntu downloads spiked, Pop! OS, Endeavour OS, and Fedora all reported above average acquisition numbers in Q4 of 2025. But Zorin was the story because Zorin was the one built for exactly this moment. Now let us look at what actually happened as a consequence. Because this is where numbers get meaningful. Steam, the gaming platform that tracks operating system data from its 130 million active users, reported that Linux desktop share hit 3.58% in early 2026. That sounds small until you realize it was just above 2% before October 2025. That is a significant shift in a market segment that historically almost never changes. Broader desktop OS tracking by StatCounter showed Linux global desktop share approaching 4% by early 2026, up from around 3% before the Windows 10 deadline. These are not enormous numbers in absolute terms, but the direction of movement is unmistakable. And in the enterprise space, something quieter but more significant is happening. IT departments at mid-sized companies are now actively running Linux pilot programs for the first time since the early 2000s. Not because Linux became perfect overnight, but because the cost-benefit calculation of staying on Microsoft's ecosystem started shifting the moment those 240 million machines needed replacing. For many businesses, replacing hardware on Microsoft's schedule means millions in capital expenditure. Zorin OS running on existing hardware means that cost disappears entirely. The ROI math is not subtle. So why does this matter right now in 2026? Because this is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a much larger one. Microsoft has already announced that Windows 10 extended security updates will end permanently in 2026, with no further extensions. That means the clock is ticking for the organizations and individuals who paid for the one-year reprieve. When that deadline hits, the pressure to migrate will hit again. And this time, the Linux ecosystem will be better prepared. Zorin OS will be further developed. The application compatibility layer, specifically Wine and Proton, which allow Windows software to run on Linux, will be more mature. Valve's Proton already enables over 90% of Steam's library to run on Linux with no configuration required. The developer community is building more native Linux apps every month. The next wave of migration will be larger than the first. And here's the personal part I want you to sit with for a moment. If you are still on Windows 10 today, your machine is running without security patches. Every unpatched vulnerability is a door that malware, ransomware, and attackers can walk through. This is not hypothetical. It is actively happening. Cybersecurity firms tracked a measurable spike in attacks targeting Windows 10 machines following the October deadline. You are not just using old software. You are using software with a target painted on it. That machine you have been using for 5 years, the one that still runs perfectly fine, the one that does everything you need it to do, is now a liability unless you do something about it. So here is what you should actually do. First, check your hardware specs. Open your system settings and find out exactly what processor, RAM, and storage you are working with. This takes 3 minutes and tells you everything about your options going forward. Second, download Zorin OS 18 from Zorin.com and create a live USB using Balena Etcher. A live USB lets you boot into Zorin and try it without touching your existing Windows installation. You can use it for a week, test your workflow, and make a real decision based on actual experience rather than fear of the unknown. Third, audit your software. Write down every app you use regularly. For each one, find its Linux equivalent or check its Wine compatibility. In most cases, you will find a native Linux alternative that is just as good, if not better. LibreOffice handles documents. GIMP handles image editing. VLC handles media. Brave handles browsing. The alternatives are there. Fourth, if you have files you care about, back them up before doing anything. Use an external drive or a cloud service. This is true before any OS migration, not just Linux. Fifth, if you decide to commit to Zorin, join the Zorin Community Forum. The community around Linux-based systems is genuinely helpful in a way that Microsoft's official support never has been. Real users solving real problems for free because they want the ecosystem to succeed. Here's the bigger picture. For 30 years, Windows was the operating system you used because there was no real alternative. The alternatives existed, technically, but they were not accessible enough for regular people to seriously consider. That era is over. What Zorin OS proves is not just that Linux has improved. It proves that when a company stops listening to its users, when it prioritizes monetization over experience, when it treats the people who made it successful as leverage rather than partners, those people will eventually find the door. And they will leave. Not loudly, not with a protest. Just quietly, steadily, 2 million downloads at a time. If you learned something from this video, hit like. It genuinely helps more people find this content. If you are on the fence about switching or just curious about what comes next in the Windows versus Linux story, subscribe, because this story is far from over. And drop a comment below telling me what OS you are currently running. I read every single one of them. See you in the next one.